act like, Lebanon wasn't part of the deal when it was. Iran said, yo, look, if you start attacking us and our allies in the region, then we will go ahead and open up the Strait of Hormuz as a gesture of goodwill. And they did that. So Iran actually did follow through with that. And then Israel bombed Lebanon, and then he came right up to the shields and said, yeah, we're not doing that no more.
Israel intentionally violated the terms.
Well, last night, Trump turned his attention.
I mean, bro, Israel won't let us get nothing nice. Nothing nice. No ceasefire. No America First president. Nothing. Nothing at all.
An even bigger target, the Pope, His Holiness, has taken a not unreasonable position on the Iran war, namely that threatening to destroy civilization is unacceptable and that God doesn't like war. The president responded by saying that he doesn't like the Pope. And then a move that angered even some of his most loyal supporters, Trump posted this image of himself as Jesus Christ. Now, plenty of people have been pointing out to the president that the religious fanatics led by a divine strongman are supposed to be on the other side. Just before we came on air, Trump deleted the image of himself as the Son of God, which is about as close as he's probably ever got to a genuine apology. Professor Jeffrey Sachs and a stellar panel are standing by, but we begin tonight in Beirut, where all the talk of a ceasefire feels a very long way away. Yalda Hakim is an award-winning Sky News anchor and host of the World podcast and joins me now from Beirut. Yalda, welcome back to Uncensored.
Thanks so much for having me, Piers.
Well, I'm trying to get my own not quite so massive brain around all this and struggling a bit. So I thought, who better to ask than the reigning Royal Television Society Network Presenter of the Year, which brings...
Well, guys, just letting you guys know, we are still $78 away from opening up the call-in line. Like I said, if we can get that open, we can have some of you guys come up here and either debate or, give me some information that I might be missing or, just agree and talk. But all right, guys, like I said, $78 away. And if you want to help towards that, you can go ahead and super chat in or send a Venmo or Rumble rant. If not, though, double tap that screen and like the video.
With it, an assumption that you're going to give me some answers. What is going on with this war? Because I cannot make head nor tail of it.
Me neither.
Yeah, I mean, you and perhaps the rest of the world, Piers, because it would be a fool's errand to try and figure out what Donald Trump is thinking or what he's likely to do next. But I think what we can see about what's happened over the course of the last 24, 36 hours since those talks took place in Islamabad is that Donald Trump is trying to continue his pressure tactics. So he's basically hoping that Iran will cave to American pressures and that they will surrender. But that is, frankly, what the US president and the American administration has hoped for since February 28, that Iran would cave or surrender or tap out. And frankly, they haven't, because as many of your guests have said over the last 6 weeks, for the United States, this is a war of choice. But for Iran, this is about survival. For the Iranian government, the authorities, the regime there, this is the one point of victory for them is to stay surviving as a regime. And they
yeah, that's it. I mean, like I said, the goal isn't to beat beat America's military, because that's possible. The goal is to survive America's military, to make this war as unfavorable as possible, not unfavorable, as distasteful as possible, to the point where we just back off and leave the regime in power. And that would be seen as a win for Iran. Like I said, there's not really an upfront war. They're fighting an asymmetrical war. Not fighting us toe-to-toe. They're doing this asymmetrical, a.k.a. they know they can't take us up top, so they're going to try to make this war as hard for us to commit to or to, honestly, do as possible.
Probably have come out of this bruised and battered, and we know that the United States, of course, is a superior military force alongside Israel, and they have hit the IRGC hard, their military facilities and missile launches and their missiles. But the asymmetric war seems to have been won by Iran. And so, while many would say that the talks that took place in Islamabad just a couple of days ago failed or collapsed, from the Iranian perspective, the 70-member delegation that they took was met by quite a high-level delegation from the United States, led by J.D. Vance, a skeptic of this war and a skeptic of forever wars. So for him to stand alongside the parliamentary speaker, who isn't just any parliamentary speaker. He is perhaps one of the most senior members now of the Iranian regime since they took out the supreme leader and various other top leaders. That was quite an image. And so while the talks haven't necessarily gone anywhere at this point, that image that we saw is historic.
Ultimately, though, if this all ends with the regime remaining in place, albeit with different people at the top, but all from the same regime with the same ideology.
Hey, hold on. Shout out to my man. Oh, we got two of them here. Well, no. Hold on. Shout out to my man. Who is this? We got a couple of them. Oh, no. Never mind. My bad, guys. False alarm. My bad. Thought I got something.
If the enriched uranium remains buried underground and the Americans and Israelis can't get their hands on it and the Iranians don't surrender it, and the Strait of Hormuz is now established as an incredibly effective strategic weapon, and Iran maintains some form of control over it, it's very hard to see how President Trump claims any real tangible victory here, and how the Iranian regime doesn't emerge, not just surviving, albeit with its military smashed up a bit, which it clearly has been, but actually possibly emboldened by all this.
Yeah, I mean, Piers, we now live in a world where if the Americans and the Israelis do something that Iran doesn't like, they'll just close down the Strait of Hormuz again, and this was not the case 6 weeks ago when this war began. So they do now have something that's a huge leverage that's basically put huge pressure on the global economy. And so in many ways, they are already emboldened by what's happened. If you think about the negotiations that took place 6 weeks ago before this war began, and don't forget, the Iranians and the Americans were talking. There were nuclear talks 6 weeks ago. And then, of course, they say they were attacked, and they were attacked by America and Israel in the middle of those negotiations. Yeah. They've now come out of this, like you say, smashed. But in many ways, they have the kind of leverage that Donald Trump is, frankly, pulling his hair out, saying, open the damn Strait of Hormuz. So what we saw in those negotiations that took place
even Donald Trump is realizing that day by day, this gets worse. He's not going to tell the American people that, day by day, this gets worse for everybody in the world. No, he's going to pretty much sit there and, save face, say, we don't need it, but we need to get that shit open. I'm like, okay, bro, the doublespeak is crazy, but I'm glad you understand that we need to get the Strait of Hormuz open and start allowing the global market to work the way it was, before February 28th.
Islamabad was, although J.D. Vance came out and said it was about their nuclear program, they basically talked about money, ships and the uranium, because these are now the big talking points for the Americans. And they're trying to put pressure on the Iranians. But the Iranians, frankly, have all the time in the world. They're in no hurry here.
Right. And then you've got, as part of this asymmetric war, you've got the attacks the Iranians have made on their neighboring Gulf states, which I think the scale of it has come as a massive shock to those Gulf states. I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years, as have you, traveling around the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE. There was a real sense of dynamism about the region, a real conviction that they were moving inexorably from an economy based around oil, which is obviously slowly running out, for an economy based around tourism and sport and entertainment and all these things. And the big sales pitch was, come to all these states because it's safe, it's sunny, you're going to see great sport, great entertainment. We're letting tourists come and live here. And many people were. But in the last 6 weeks, you've seen this slam shut as a business model that's working right now. You see many people, expats who've gone and lived there, leaving. Who knows if they go back? Tourism is pretty well collapsing. Real concerns, I would imagine, for the Gulf states about what this means for their economies going forward. But what does that also mean for the sort of geopolitical relationships between them all and Iran and the United States going forward? Could it, for example, propel states like Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords or not?
They're already going to do so.
Well, I think, Piers, I've also spent the last 6 weeks traveling across the region. I was in Jerusalem. I then traveled to Saudi Arabia. I went to Qatar. I did an exclusive interview with the Qatari Prime Minister, who described the attacks from Iran as betrayal. Because don't forget, Qatar is one of the few countries on the planet that had good relations with Iran, that had an open dialogue with Iran, in many ways was acting as a mediator between the Americans and the Iranians. The Iranians were leaning on them to send messages to the US president at different points. So they felt a sense.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that they attack Qatar either, because Qatar is like literally our best friend in the Middle East, man. Like literally, they help us out with a lot. But honestly, though, I can understand why, because once again, we have military bases there in Qatar. Our biggest one is in Qatar in the Middle East. And yeah, we were firing from there at Iran. And what is Iran going to do? Fire at all military assets in the Middle East, like they said they were going to do if we attacked them. So as much as I hate that Qatar was attacked and the other of our Gulf allies, man, look, it is what it is, because, well, we kind of brought it upon them. And let's be real. When we attacked Iran, we kind of let our allies know that, look, man, we're okay with you guys being attacked. We just got to get Iran out the way. And hopefully y'all can bear with us.
Of betrayal. And we know that the Qatari Prime Minister has spoken to the Iranian Foreign Minister about those ongoing attacks. And if this ceasefire that is supposed to last 2 weeks collapses, what does that mean for these Gulf states? Because as you say, they've been priding themselves over the course of the last couple of decades of being some of the safest places on the planet, being a tax haven, for example, bringing in all sorts of entertainment and sport into the country, trying to give a different face and brand to the Middle East. And that, frankly, has been destroyed by this war. As you say, I mean, tourism is at an all-time low. Expats who live there are leaving. And I guess the leadership in the GCC are now thinking, okay, what do we actually have to protect ourselves? Because we had these American bases here, and actually that's done nothing to protect us. We thought the Americans would provide us with something.
And that's what I'm saying. And here's the thing. Iran is pretty much exposing our military bases as, well, liabilities instead of assets, especially if they don't want to get attacked by Iran. They're like, okay, well, I'm sorry, but the reason like we're being attacked is because of these U.S. bases that are housed in our country. And this is one of the strategies of Iran, is trying to make us look more like a liability than an asset. And we're an asset, but I mean, if we're one of the main reasons why they're getting attacked and our continuous aggression, it still continues to be that reason, then I mean, I don't know how long they're going to be able to have that patience with us. I mean, hopefully they don't never lose patience, but I mean, who knows? Who knows? I don't think I don't think we got that long. I think we got a couple months at best to wrap this up, for the Gulf countries are even looking at us like, all right, bro, what are you trying to do? Destroy our economy?
Kind of cover. And this war that we are not part of, didn't ask for, tried to deter the US president from entering, has actually turned into our war on our front doorstep, battering our economies as well. So I'm not sure, frankly, if Saudi Arabia will join the Abraham Accords. There is still a lot of ill feeling from Saudi Arabia towards Israel about the war in Gaza, for example. And so they still have that card on the table where they say, well, we wouldn't be normalizing any relations until there's a two-state solution. So I don't think based on what's happening now, Saudi Arabia would suddenly, join forces and be part of the Abraham Accords. But certainly all of these Gulf states are going to have to think about how.
No, they was thinking about it before. Saudi Arabia was thinking about getting into the Abraham's Accords without the answering of the Palestinian question of a one-state or two-state solution. So they was willing to do it. That's kind of one of the reasons why Hamas attacked on October 7th. It was because of the Abraham Accords that Saudi Arabia was about to get into without the answering of the Palestinian question, which they seen as a big betrayal. So they attacked because of that. They also attacked because of the Alexa Moss, and it possibly about to be destroyed. And that's why it was called Operation Alexa Moss. And then, of course, there was a third reason of, well, they tried protesting for rights, and that didn't really work out for them. So now they're just saying F it, straight up terrorism. Not saying what they did was right, just giving you guys the reasons for the attack.
how they defend themselves going forward. And that's why they've been talking to the Ukrainians, for example, because, it's not just interceptors that they need. They need these drone interceptors, which the Ukrainians have been extraordinary at being able to create in their factories to take their war on with Russia.
It's fascinating. Let's just end by talking about Lebanon, because you're there in Beirut. I interviewed Danny Danon, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, the other day, and he posted something on his X account, kind of gloating that he clarified to me in the interview that Israel is not bombing Lebanon. It is bombing very specifically Hezbollah, but a bit like the bombing campaign in Gaza, in the process of, in their eyes, going after Hamas, they also managed to kill an enormous number of civilians and cause enormous structural damage to vast swathes of Gaza.
I mean, yeah, bro. Even reported by the Lebanese officials, they were like, bro, there were places that you struck that there was no Hezbollah killed in. So in those 100 strikes, I'm not gonna lie, there were Hezbollah killed in those strikes, but there were more civilians killed than Hezbollah. And then there were some strikes that there was no members of Hezbollah killed. It was just nothing but civilians. So yeah, that's a problem with carrying out 100 strikes in 1 hour. I mean, I guess you don't really get time to calibrate those, or I guess make sure you're being accurate with those strikes.
Gaza, 70, 80% of it virtually razed to the ground. And we're seeing not quite the same scale in Lebanon, but you're seeing over 1 million people displaced. We're now seeing the death toll is over 2,000, 7,000 wounded. Many of these are civilians, women, children, and others. Like I say, it follows a familiar looking pattern to what happened in Gaza. What is your sense about what is happening there?
Piers, the humanitarian crisis in this country is gut-wrenching. When you say over 1 million people displaced, many of them from southern Lebanon, tens of thousands of homes have been destroyed there. People who had nothing to do with Hezbollah didn't have military installations or facilities in their homes. Homes that have been there for decades, sometimes for 100 years, have been destroyed. I've spoken to people who had holiday homes in the south of the country that no longer stand, have been turned to rubble. And so people are moving north. And here in Beirut, an extraordinary city, a beautiful city, civilians were shocked on Wednesday because they thought when they woke up that they were part of some kind of wider ceasefire deal. And Israel made it very clear, the IDF made it very clear that they were not part of that deal. And within the space of just minutes, 10 minutes, the IDF launched 100 strikes across this country. Many of those strikes here in Beirut, not very far from where I'm currently standing. I interviewed a young girl, a 13-year-old girl who was just mucking about on Snapchat to her friends, going for a walk with her dad, really quite close to where I'm here in central Beirut. And suddenly, she saw buildings collapse around her. She was minutes away from being killed as far as her mum was concerned. We know, according to the Lebanese health ministry, that 99 women and 33 children were killed during that bombing campaign on Wednesday. It's now known as Black Wednesday in this country. They had a national day of mourning. So civilians here are reeling. They were shocked. They've remain shocked that they're not part of any kind of ceasefire deal. And just minutes before.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, what I was pretty much saying was that, yeah, it was like, what was it? When I was first reading into it, 254 people, citizens, reported killed and over 1,000 injured. And that was like what, a couple of days ago. It's a lot higher now, I'm pretty sure. And this was the strike that ended the ceasefire and made Iran close back the Strait of Hormuz that we had open for at least an hour. So I'm sorry, but yeah, this is out of line. And somebody needs to check Israel, because apparently instead of over here blaming Israel, we're over here trying to say, well, we never included that in the ceasefire. Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. But the problem is we don't want to admit that, because we don't want to admit that we can't control Israel.
Before I came on air, Hezbollah launched about 10 drones onto Israeli sites and to target the IDF. And so the war here continues, but this country continues also to be bruised, battered, and left devastated by the growing death toll, which is over 2,000 people killed now. And as you say, when we say over a million people displaced, we throw these numbers around, but that is a hell of a lot of people, a fifth of this country now, frankly, homeless.
Yeah, I mean, the clip that you were talking about, this was this 13-year-old Naya Faki, I think her name is, who was filming a Snapchat video. Let's just take a quick look at that because it was riveting to watch.
Had you experienced anything like that before?
I've, of course, experienced bombs, but I've never seen a building fall in front of me or trying to run away from one.
I mean, it just says it all, really. I think they can claim as much as they like that they're only targeting Hezbollah, but the video speaks for itself, and that's happening all over Lebanon. Yalda, I've got to leave it there, but that was a fascinating update on it all. Thank you very much.
I know, as much as Israel want to sit there and lie to you that they're only targeting Hezbollah, no, there's actually civilians. They're killing more civilians than Hezbollah. Just like we were trying to tell you how they're pretty much committing a genocide in Gaza, and they're killing more civilians in Gaza than Hamas. What did you try to tell us? Oh, no, you guys are, what are you, pro-Hamas? No, we're just telling you the truth of what's happening. And I mean, now people are accepting it. Now people accept that there are over 70,000 civilians dead, but Hamas is still out there running out and about. It's like, now y'all admit it. So what? Are you going to wait to the end result for the same, or are you going to call it out early for once?
Thank you.
Well, my panel's coming up in a few minutes, but joining me now is the renowned economist and global affairs expert, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Professor Sachs, welcome back to Uncensored.
Piers, great to be with you. Thank you.
Where are we with this war? What is going on? I mean, as I'm about to talk to you, Hillary Clinton has posted, Trump has become fully unhinged and we should talk about it. On MS Now this morning, she added, I read these posts like the majority of Americans, both shaking my head and really just feeling sick that we have a president who is such a disgrace. And this follows another barrage of slightly bonkers posts by Donald Trump, pretending to be Jesus and attacking the Pope and so on and so on. Very familiar pattern to 6 weeks now, this kind of thing, attacking NATO, attacking all the European countries, attacking conservative podcasters, pretty well looking like he's on a rampage of, I guess, trying to find people to blame for what many people now think is turning into an enormous mess. What is your reading?
Well, it certainly is a disaster. It's a disaster of two people, Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. They are both mentally unstable as individuals, and they both lead ruthless governments. Both are waging war relentlessly, brutally.
Guys, if you have any questions, comments, jokes, or disagreements, feel free to super chat it in, or you just want to support. Appreciate the support, guys. And let's not forget to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. We are at, let's see here, 322 likes. So let's even go ahead and get to 400 by double tapping that screen and liking the video. All right, guys, let's get right into it with our guy, Jeffrey Sachs.
Donald Trump has said things in the last few days that of a shocking nature that no president in American history has ever come close to uttering. And he's now attacked Pope Leo and posted a picture of himself as Jesus Christ. In other words, the man is mentally, this is one of the few times I agree with Hillary Clinton, I guess. The man is mentally unstable.
And people are already making like, well, let's just say this. Some people already made their corrections. Like, guys, check this out. Like, check this out.
Your reckoning has come. What is this?
Wild.
War is a disaster. It is going to create a global crisis. It was a war, not even to say of choice, but of whim of Netanyahu and Trump. Two people got us into this. It's a measure of how completely deinstitutionalized the United States government is, that this is basically a war chosen by one person with a sycophantic Secretary of Defense, all the rest of his tiny inside team going along, but knowing that this is tragic and farcical is the word that one of the insiders used, and no role whatsoever of Congress, no evidence of even a minimal interagency consultations other than to hear the objections of the intelligence agencies and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So,
I mean, bro, they kicked out, what was it, Joe Kent, head of counterterrorism, out of the briefings. Is like, hold on, like, we're talking about Iran, right? Y'all call them the biggest terrorist state, and you didn't have the head of counterterrorism, ex-CIA, ex-military, who literally fought these proxies in those briefings, giving you information. One of the most qualified guys we could find is left out of the briefings. Oh, it's no wonder this war is a shit show. Okay, that makes sense.
we're in the hands of absolute craziness.
What is fascinating, actually, as we're talking, he's now deleted, very unusually, the post of him as Jesus Christ, this image which he posted earlier. He very rarely deletes anything. What is interesting to me is I urged him to delete the post in which he was raging about ending civilization, which would have involved killing all 90 million Iranians. And I also didn't like his, and I urged him to delete the Easter Sunday message in which he was talking in the most foul-mouthed way about it all and saying praise be to Allah. None of this is helping anything from what I can look at.
Yeah, usually we have a political issue. Israel and the United States together have created a disaster in the Middle East. Israel has created a genocide. Israel and the United States together have created this war of whim in Iran that has killed thousands, but has already begun to devastate the entire world. But we also have clearly a clinical condition. We have an individual mental incapacity. The psychiatrists and psychologists that look at this call it the dark triad, meaning that the man is narcissistic, Machiavellian, in other words, completely untrustworthy in every way, and psychopathic, meaning that killing other people does not have any concern for either of these people. So these are both dark triad personalities.
And I know how a lot of people want to play this whole, ending of civilization, or, it's going to be power plant and bridge day. As much as y'all want to play that off, I just want you to know, no American president in history has ever made threats like that in public. None. Because let's be real, who want to be seen in that light? But all right.
Many people are saying, Piers, that Trump is also showing symptoms of frontotemporal dementia as well. In other words, that this personality's always been there, but the loss of impulse control has taken over, perhaps because of dementia added to this. We have a very serious issue. There's never been a president in this incapacity. It's very dangerous, but I just want to emphasize, on top of this is a collapse of our governmental processes. There are no consultations with Congress. Congress, for all intents and purposes, doesn't exist. The National Security Council, for all intents and purposes, does not exist. The intelligence agencies, for all intents and purposes, do not exist. They advised against this.
Yep.
So we have
our CIA was telling them no. Like, our intelligence was telling Trump, look, this is not a good idea. Israeli intelligence, the Mossad, was telling Trump, oh, this is a good idea and it's going to be easy and we should go along with it. And trust me, instead of listening to our own guys that our taxpayer money go into, the CIA, he listened to the Mossad, which pissed me off because it's just like, so hold on. Instead of listening to your fellow Americans, you're listening to a bunch of Israelis. I'm sorry, but I ain't got no hatred against Israelis, but I'm gonna listen to my own over them every time. Every time. So, like, what the hell are you doing listening to the Israelis over Americans who actually serve America? You listen to Israelis who serve Israel, and you left out our CIA who serve America. Like, bro, what the F is wrong with you? But let's enjoy this quick little video pretty much explaining how those talks went down.
All right, BB, what do you got for me?
Mr. President, the time is now. The Iranians are weak, and a joint U.S.-Israeli mission could finally bring an end to the Islamic Republic. Our intelligence says Iran's ballistic missile program could be destroyed in a few weeks. We can kill their leaders, and they'd be so weak and they could not choke off the Strait of Hormuz. And the likelihood of them landing blows against U.S. interests in neighboring countries is low.
How would we effectuate the regime change?
Street protests inside Iran would begin, and with the help of Mossad, we would foment riots and rebellion. Iranian Kurds could also assist. Mr. President, this is the time.
Thanks, BB, for your presentation. My team and I will discuss. Can we get our intelligence people to look into this?
We have broken down Mr. Netanyahu's presentation into 4 parts. 1, decapitation, which is killing the Iranian supreme leader. 2, crippling Iranian capacity to project power. 3, a popular uprising in Iran. And 4, regime change. It is our assessment the first 2 objectives are achievable with American might, while the 3rd and 4th parts are detached from reality. Just to summarize, Mr. President, regime change is farcical. In other words, Mr. President, it's bullshit. I would say regime change could happen, but it shouldn't be considered an objective. Yeah, I would advise against all this greatly.
General Kane, what do you think?
Sir, this is, in my experience, standard operating procedure for the Israelis. They oversell, and their plans are not always well developed. They know they need us, and that's why they're hard selling.
Okay, got it. Regime change would be their problem, but if we do this, it would be to kill their leaders and decapitate their military.
Mr. President, any major campaign against Iran would drastically deplete our stockpiles with no clear path to replenishing. The Strait of Hormuz is also a real risk.
Really? I think the regime would capitulate before it came to the Strait. I'm thinking this could be a very quick war, just like the 12-day war in Venezuela.
Mr. President, I think we should do it. I'm more ambivalent. I don't think the Iranians will agree to a negotiated deal, but I prefer a campaign of maximum pressure rather than a full-scale war. I have concerns, but I defer to others on this topic. I think this is the worst idea ever, and I prefer no strike, but if we're going to do it, it should be limited.
I think we're going to do it.
If that's so, use overwhelming force so our objectives are achieved quickly.
Yeah, I hear you. Hold on, Tucker Carlson's calling. Hello?
Mr. President, don't start a war with Iran.
I know you're worried about it, but it's going to be okay.
How do you know?
Because it always is. All right, team, we got a new piece of intelligence that the Iranian supreme leader will be at an above-ground meeting with other top officials wide open for an air attack. I think we have to do this. Thoughts?
Well, Mr. President, here's what the attack will look like from a military perspective. You know I think this is a bad idea, but if you want to do it, I'll support you. If you feel this is needed for America's national security, go ahead. It is pretty rare to have the Iranian supreme leader and other top leaders in a gathering spot we can strike, so if you define regime change as just killing the supreme leader, we can probably do that. The plan put forward is legally permissible.
But what's your personal opinion?
I'm a Marine veteran, sir, who knows people killed by the Iranians, so if Israel intends to proceed regardless, we should go ahead. Mr. President, this would be a public relations nightmare. The American people voted for you partly for no new wars. It's your decision, Mr. President, and the press team will manage it as best as we can. We have to take care of the Iranians eventually, might as well now. There's many risks, but if you order the operation, we will execute. If our goal is regime change or an uprising, we shouldn't do it, but if the goal is to destroy Iran's missile program, that's a goal we can achieve.
All right, we're doing it.
No regime change, no missile program destroyed, no drone program destroyed. So, yeah, even that guy was wrong.
A one-man rule, and the one man happens to be crazy.
I mean, there will be some who listen to you, Professor Sachs, and that you listen to your damning critique of Trump and Netanyahu, calling them psychopathic and delusional, as you did in an interview at the weekend. But then you went on to say that only Vladimir Putin, Narendra Modi, and Xi Jinping can stop Trump and Israel with their policies at the moment. And they'll say, well, hang on. You talk about delusional, psychopathic, and wanting to kill everyone. What about Vladimir Putin? Isn't that exactly the way that he's portrayed himself in recent years?
No, I think the situation is completely different. I'm talking of a psychological assessment of Trump. One can discuss.
Man, Putin never said he was going to end an entire civilization. And he never said, oh, I'm just going to go out there and take out energy infrastructure and bridges. He never say that. Sure, my man has attacked civilian buildings and all that good stuff. But as far as going out there saying he's going to end an entire civilization or gloat about doing so, yeah, he never did that.
As we have done at length, and I'm delighted that we've done so, how we got into this open conflict with Russia after all of the possibilities of peace. That is a historical process that lasted more than 30 years, starting with the U.S. cheating on the clearest possible commitment that it made about not expanding the U.S. military, much less to Russia's border. But that's a historical and political issue, and it's a major political issue. Here, I'm talking about a psychological issue. We have not seen any of those three leaders post themselves as Jesus Christ, take on the Pope, say that they're going to destroy.
Yeah, man. Thing is, Russia wouldn't, because, well, he's an Orthodox Christian. Russia is mostly Orthodox Christians, like Putin himself. And then, well, in China, I mean, they don't even really believe in religion. They believe in themselves, so they wouldn't do that. It's just wild that our president thought that it was, okay to do so. You know what? I mean, me personally, I wasn't all that offended, but I did see how, the Christian group is going to low-key lose their shit over this. Now, my man Castro, he's Christian, and he's like, it's not that bad. Like, there's red lines. Not like he called himself Jesus, and he's making fun of Jesus' teachings. So, I mean, that's fair. So as far as this is going, it doesn't seem like this is a big deal to MAGA, to be quite honest with you. So, I mean, it is what it is. Some people are going to take it more serious than others.
Destroy a civilization by evening, or use the language that we can't even use, Piers, or maybe we can use. I don't know if we're allowed to say, close the fuck.
Nah, Vladimir Putin isn't my man. I'm just saying, though, I would hope that our president would hold himself to a higher standard than Vladimir Putin. That's all I'm saying. I would hope that we wouldn't be sitting here making comparisons between our president and Vladimir Putin looking more like the saint here. It's like, I would hope we would never have to come down to that, but sadly, here we are.
Fucking straight, you crazy bastards, which the president of the United States wrote on Easter morning. This is something we should understand as being different. This is something absolutely distressing, because when we also understand the account of how these decisions have been made, they have been made by one person.
Is it not true that on that point,
yes.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of debate, obviously, after what Hillary Clinton has said, and others, there's going to be a lot of debate about whether Trump is suffering some kind of cognitive issues, and that will be what it is. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
But is there, when you look at what Trump has done with Iran, I mean, I think I'm right in saying, I'm sure you'll know the answer to this, but since World War II, I don't think any American president has sought congressional approval for any military action, because they've never couched it as war. They've always couched it as a military action or whatever, which means they don't need to actually get pre-congressional approval. Is that the case?
Well, just to say, we've had a huge deterioration of our democracy since 1947, when the CIA was established under the National Security Act. So I won't argue with you there. There have been many attempts to go to Congress and to go to the United Nations for approval, sometimes disregarded in the end. Sometimes Congress has voted approval, like the infamous Gulf of Tonkin resolution, in which Congress authorized the use of force in Vietnam on false pretenses. And similarly, after 9/11, there was a congressional authorization of the use of force. But we've never had a process as deinstitutionalized as the one we have right now, where we basically, even the deep state, let's put it that way, the CIA, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Armed Services Committees of Congress, they're not part of this decision making. We know actually the kind of tick-tock that of how this war took place because of an unusually clear and explicit inside account that the New York Times reported a few days ago. This was basically Netanyahu spinning a crazy story to Trump, and Trump buying it while the rest of the room was saying, "Are you kidding? This is farcical." But this man, I'm sorry, I don't know how well you know him or not, and
so basically, like, while Bibi was telling his story, everybody in Trump's administration was like, "Bro, this man can't be serious." I'm like, "Bro, you really try to tell us, oh, Iran's gonna fall in 4 days? oh, they're just 2 weeks away from making a bomb. Like, dog, in your younger years, you were here saying the same exact crap. Like, I could see everybody in the administration low-key laughing at Bibi like, bro, you're tripping. Like, you've been trying to do this for years. We're not listening to you now. And we have this anti-war president. Well, what we thought we had was an anti-war president. Then all of a sudden, the administration gets blindsided by, hold on, wait. You believe what Bibi says? Like, hold on, you really think that Iran is going to be taken out in a week? Really? You think Iran is going to be okay with us, taking their nuclear enrichment? Oh, you also think they're 2 weeks away from a bomb. You believed everything he told you? Like, bro, he's been pitching that to the last 3 presidents and nobody believed him. Why are you believing him? Like, why, Trump? Why? And I can only imagine him saying, I'm going with my gut feeling. My gut's never wrong. Yeah, I can imagine that. And we're cooked if that's the case. But, and as I've been saying, yes, it has been told. Bibi's pitched this idea to multiple presidents, and they all told his ass to kick rocks because they all the intelligence agencies and the people in administration always laughed at Bibi like, bro, we know you're just trying to drag us into a war to fight against Iran because you guys can't beat them yourselves. And we're not doing it. But for some reason, Trump's like, oh, yeah, we about to go ahead and do this. And for some reason, he let the Israelis trick him into moving the goalposts from no nuclear weapons, which Iran's already committed to no enrichment at all, which Iran won't commit to.
Apologize, but I observe him. I don't know him, but he's not very smart. This man is not knowledgeable.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've known Trump 20 years. I would say he has.
Well, guys, you want to get the call-in line open, guys? Let's make sure we are supporting the show with a super chat, Venmo, or rant. You can go ahead and send that in through Rumble, YouTube, or Venmo. And guys, let's not forget to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. I believe we are close to 400 likes, so let's go ahead and double tap that screen and let's get to that 400 likes.
Actually, pretty good gut instinct normally, which is not necessarily the normal political smarts or huge intellect or those things, but that his gut instincts have actually often been quite good. What was striking about the New York Times piece was that everybody else's gut instinct was that the sequence of events that Netanyahu and the head of Mossad were laying out as what would happen if the Americans came in with the Israelis to attack Iran was the Ayatollah would go, the IRGC would start to collapse, the people would rise up, and they'd all be so distracted that no one would pay any attention to the Strait of Hormuz. And only the top bit of that happened. So, yes, they took out the supreme leader, but the rest of this did not happen. The IRGC remains firmly in charge. The people have not risen up. And the Strait of Hormuz has become an enormous economic battering ram where Iran's found out it can hold the world to ransom. And we're now in the kind of utterly perverse place where, having said that he would, blow up the whole of civilization in Iran, so 90 million people, if they didn't open the Strait of Hormuz, he is the one now launching a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
A blockade of a blockade.
Right. So you literally, I just scratched my head. Just finally, Jeffrey, before we let you go, the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has just seen his 16-year rule ended. Peter Magyar, once a staunch loyalist of his Tisza party, won Sunday's parliamentary election by a landslide. Right. People are seeing it as a significant bellwether for MAGA because Orban's concept of illiberal democracy and his focus on Christian liberty and anti-immigration policies made him a hero to MAGA activists. And of course, one of the reasons Donald Trump sent J.D. Vance to try and save him at the ballot box, which was unsuccessful. I know you've praised the Hungarian government's stance on the war in Ukraine, specifically its push for peace negotiations and opposition to escalating the conflict. But is there a bigger sort of signal being sent here by what the Hungarian electorate has done? We've seen a rise of authoritarian leaders around the world since Trump won the election in 2016. Is this the beginning of the reversal of that, do you think?
I don't think so. I think what we have is people everywhere in Europe and in the United States are very unhappy. So approval ratings of our politicians are absolutely at the bottom. This is true in the UK. It's true across Europe. In just about every country, it's true for Trump. These politicians will lose at each election. This is what's going to happen right now. None of them is listening to the common sense of the public. Stay out of the damn wars, attend to our problems, which are very real. Stop this escalation towards World War III. And Macron, Merz, Trump, Starmer, none of them is going to face an electorate successfully because they're all unpopular. And in the case of Hungary, it's quite clear. Orban was in a very long time. People are unhappy with their economic circumstances. They voted him out. So at least this is what democracy does. It gives you that moment. It doesn't give you much say in between, but it gives you that moment to vote people out. And Trump is going to face this in November. He knows it. It's the end of the Republican control of Congress and the last 2 years of the Trump administration.
Yeah, it looks like he's about to bush it. Like, bro, he's about to completely bush it. People are going to be, honestly, not really too satisfied the Republican Party. We're going to have bad voter turnout, and the Dems are going to take over. And here's the thing. I know there was guys getting mad at the anti-war guys. So what are you going to do? Vote Dem? No, we're not. No, we're just not going to vote. And the Dems are going to have a better voter turnout than the Republicans, and they're going to win. And we're going to look at you guys like this is your fault because you sold out the America First agenda for a war that wasn't America First, and it completely cooked our numbers. And you guys kept cheerleading it as our numbers went down. Now, when it comes to midterms, you guys are going to be the same ones, salty as hell, that you now have a congressman that was a Republican, but now is a Democrat. You're going to remember me telling you that, yo, the further we support this war, the more we keep on supporting it, the worse it's going to be for Republicans in the midterms. And you're not going to listen. And there most likely will be a blue wave because of this, because he's completely bushing it right now. The economy don't look so good. We're in a war. I mean, bro, it's complete sabotage of the Republican Party. And y'all ain't going to sit there and cry to us talking about, oh, you're just going to let the Democrats win. No, y'all are the ones letting the Democrats win by not holding Trump accountable. Bro, y'all making the same mistake the Dems do. Excuse me. They don't ever hold their politicians accountable. And I said that's been a mistake of the Dems for a while now. And this is why they lost with Biden, because they can't hold their own accountable. And we're doing the same thing.
Are going to tie this man up in knots because he's going to be impeached almost immediately, I would presume, by a Democratic majority in Congress. And because he has abused the political system and wrecked living standards in the United States. So this is going to come up for a lot of politicians. I don't think it proves anything about clarity of any trends. There is no clarity in our part of the world, as you know. Everything is confused right now.
I am certainly confused, but as always, you bring a bit of clarity to a confused world. Professor.
And shout out to my man Noah Joyner. Like, yeah, we should still vote, but we need to go based off policy and personal character. Basic research will help with that. And yeah, I'm all about that. Trust me. The problem is, though, is like a lot of MAGAs go over here getting mad that we've lost a couple of these special elections. And I'm like, well, no shit, because we're not focusing on America first, or especially on affordability. We're focusing more on foreign intervention, if anything. So that's going to lean a lot of people away. That's going to discourage people to vote in these special elections. This is why we're losing, because the Dems, they're doubling down on their belief that Trump is not that Trump and the Republicans need to get up out of power. They're doubling down on that belief, and we're waning on our belief that they need to stay in power. That's the problem. Even if some of us still go out there and vote just on the premise of fuck the Dems, it's not enough because too many unfulfilled promises. And if they're not fulfilled by midterms, yeah, the Republicans are going to see a terrible voter turnout and they'll have nobody to blame but themselves. And of course, they're going to try to blame Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and the rest of us. But come on now, that's not right. You guys know that this was unpopular. You kept on doing it at us telling you guys that, yo, you're going to turn away a lot of us, and you still did it. And while calling us names. So when you lose those midterms, don't cry to us. Don't try to blame us. Blame yourselves for supporting an agenda that wasn't pro-American, that you try to paint as pro-American.
Jeffrey Sachs, thank you very much.
Great to be with you. Thanks a lot.
I'm joined now by my panel, Vincent Ashana, PBD podcast Angry Patriot, host of the Dan Abrams Show on SiriusXM and YouTube, Dan Abrams, Fred Fleitz, the Vice Chairman of the America First Policy Institute, and John Fugelsang, author of the book Separation of Church and Hate. Well, welcome to all of you, all with slightly different perspectives, I think, on this. Let me start with you, Dan Abrams, if I can. I mean, there's so much going on, almost 98% of it driven by what comes
you.